Hi, good day everyone. So we are now on our lesson 4 of our tour guiding module. So this module will discuss the following title, Tour Guiding as a Profession. So now let me emphasize what is a profession. There are similar words in the English dictionary that might be used interchangeably with a profession such as occupation, such as job, okay? So it's totally different from occupation because when you say occupation, basically you are um, as a time or currently you are occupied on what are you doing. So that is occupation. Now when you discuss work, so basically for me when I what's your work? So basically it entails a lot of travail or perhaps that you are in a sense that you're not I mean you're not really into it or you're not really passionate about or what you're doing right now, so there is a total non-commitment or of the task you're currently doing right now, so that separates profession from work and occupation. Now what about job? So for job is basically similar fashion. You say job, what's your job? So you might most likely you are looking for other other I can say other possible more job that is more appropriate for you or more job that high paying much more higher salary, so there is a little amount of commitment to stay with the current job. So because job alone is entailing there is some sort of a need. You need to have this, of course, you need to secure salary and you need to put food in the table, etc. So these are common features of a job. Profession is much more than that because in profession, there is, similar with job, there is a qualification requirement. You meet the qualification requirement of the job or in the of the profession. So what separate further job from professional is that job there is no some sort of certification, some sort of competency-based testing that could ascertain that you are really or possess this following skill sets. So that's a job. In profession, there is really a qualification standard plus the certification. So or licensing or licensure. Okay. So a job, for example, would be a bank teller. So a bank teller, any course will do for a bank teller. So as long as they meet a certain educational qualification, certain criteria. So that is a bank teller. Now, for book or for accountant, that's totally different because in accounting or accountant, you need to secure the license. So that makes you a professional compared with a bank teller or bookkeeper. So they don't have a certain certification or licensing or, I mean, professional examination or license to do or conduct the professional or I mean the profession. So that separates different categories for job. Now, career is much more higher compared with profession because when you say career, there is already a commitment. Though it's not really imply whether or not there is a certain certification or some sort of quality assurance in the part of the human resources. Now, anyway, let's proceed with tour guiding. So, tour guiding is a profession. When we say profession, it's basically there is a licensure sanctioned by the local government or accreditation by the Department of Tourism. So there is a way for you to got certification for your following skill sets. So this is important to know because a professional cannot become a professional if there is no a sanctioned skill set certification. So what separates you from the amateur and a professional is the license. So in similar fashion, in tour guiding, there is a degree of professionality because of the efforts of the Department of Tourism through the local government to professionalize the tour guides of their places. Okay, so let's proceed. So in this lesson, we're going to discuss the following topic outlines. So we have qualities of professional tour guides, requirement to become a tour guide, compensation and benefits of a tour guide. Of course, that's the most important thing for you as a student to know whether or not, as of this time, being a tour guide is really viable for you financially. If you're not, of course, if you do have some financial resources together with your family, it might be appropriate for you to start it leisurely and then eventually succeed to it full time. If not, you might consider it this profession after securing much more stable ground in other job, other work, or other career path. Next, 10 commandments of a tour guide. So these are basically the ethics of a tour guide. So these are common practice along the industry. So of course, later I will explain to you what are the rationale behind this kind of ethics or this kind of commandments in tour guiding. Okay. What are the qualities of professional tour guide that one must possess? So a professional tour guide could be easily be separated from the amateur or pretenders by the following 7 criteria or 7 C's, that what I called. So there are many gauge or many matrix that you can use, but basically these are the really obvious or these are the really common grounds that we use to evaluate whether to entrust our group to a particular tour guide. Because as a tour operator, you have the responsibility to assure that your guides are well trained, well equipped, and of course professional to handle your group. Just in case any misstep on the part of the tour guide will greatly affect the reputation of the tour company. Of course, tour company relies on reputation rather than prices, because of your tour prices are really cheap, but of course they are known as poor quality. No travel agency or no tourist would you will create a bad impression of yourself. Of course, that destroys the business cycle of your establishment. So that's how critical are the tour guides. Now to discuss confidence. So confidence is basically different from being domineering or being bossy. So there is an obvious sign of confidence. So when say confidence, these are characteristic or traits that exude from our expertise, because we know the thing, we're sure of the thing, and what makes you confident about that is because you know your study, you know you can really pass the exam, you know that you are well versed in that particular subject area, so you are confident in giving out your opinion. So that is the opposite. When we don't know things, we are hesitant, we are quite reserved, we don't express our opinion because we don't know. So that makes us less confident. So now, confidence is a byproduct of expertise plus experience. So, of course, professional tour guide has this qualification. They have the expertise in the subject area plus credible experience throughout the years. Of course, the the longer or the more experience you have, the more confident you become. Okay, next. Capability. Capability is the ability or the quality of a tour guide to be able to handle groups. Actually, we're paying you, or the tour operator is paying you to handle this group because of this capability. You know how to handle groups, you know how to handle people, you know how to please people, you know how to, accommodate tourists. So this is the capability that we're looking for a tour guide. Next, critical thinking. So as a tour guide, we are expecting you to go beyond the average tourist-like thinking. You are thinking one step ahead from the tourist. Example, you know that the tourist is all tired after the after waiting for their flight, after waiting for their baggage at the carousel at the airport. They are all dead tired, and the hotel check in is around 2 p.m. So So what they're going to do? So they arrive early at around 10. So you ask the reservation. The reservation told you that they could only check in at around 2 p.m. because there are no rooms. The rooms are being clean as of the moment. So as a good tour guide, you're going to have the following measure to, I mean, of course, you would ask the hotel for a welcome drinks because your guests might be thirsty along the way. Second, you might direct your guests for a nearby restaurant. Of course, they could take their lunch. It's already lunchtime. And for some guests, you might direct them to have their shopping, and you can ask their luggage to be placed in the concierge or have the baggage tag with them, and of course secure the luggage while people are now getting busy while their rooms are being cleaned. So this is how we think as a tour guide. So now, if you are not a professional tour guide, what happens to you is you become so reactive of the situation. So the only option for you is to, I mean, to, okay, guys, so here's the hotel. So let's wait for 2 p.m. So until the rooms are clean. So while waiting, you can stay at the hotel lobby and then do your thing. So basically, that is not so a proactive approach for that. So a good tour guide is proactive, meaning to say we think one step at the time because you know it's already 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock is lunchtime for Filipinos. So you might uh, direct the attention of your group to a restaurant, if not to a local souvenir shop or shopping mall or other places of interest. So that is a good day, a good things to do while waiting for the room. Okay. Next is competency. A good tour guide must be able to possess or demonstrate these following skill sets. So if you're a language tour guide, you should be confident in the particular language that you choose to major in. Another thing is you know first aid because emergency, you don't know or to use that life saving skills that we have, first aid skills. Another thing is competency. You should be well versed with hotel protocols. Should be well equipped with airline policy in terms of cancellation because the guest might ask you for certain assistance for her booking or for let's say lost baggage. So this might be a very useful information for you to handle the query of your guest and also to assist your guests or to become representative of your guests for his concern. Okay. Next, communication. So a good tour guide is a good communicator. So okay, so some of you might think, sir, do I need to become fluent with English? Do I have to possess impeccable grammar? Do I have to have the accent? Do I have to have a good, I mean, um, fluency in English? Okay. So as a matter of fact, that really helps a lot because, um, people perceive good communicator very well. So, for example, during our days or during your days, college days, diba? So when your classmates are describing things straight English, no hums, no no. So you feel that your classmate is indeed very smart and bright, right? But as a matter of fact, it's just only the function of their communication skills. So good communicators are almost often projected as a smart or intelligent guy. So inversely, it's true for poor communicators because they are much more perceived to be inconfident, unsure of their answer, and of course, uh, poor construct of explanation. So the tendency we don't understand what they're trying to say. So but for tour guiding, I could at least say that communication level should be based upon to your client. For example, we cannot expect good English, or let's say we try to avoid using fluent English or high polluting words when you're speaking with clients that are coming from East Asian countries or countries that are not native American or native English speakers because this might undermine their confidence, and we don't want that. And also it will create much more lot of miscommunication in the part of our okay. So English is a international language, but of course the English that we use here in the Philippines is American English. That might be some sort of unappropriate from other forms of English, such as the British English or the Australian English, that they have their own jargons. For example, when describing for can you turn off the lights? So meaning to say turn off. But for British English, it should be turn it down. So these are some of jargons that are commonly used. Now, for communication, as a matter of fact, I think you should be able, as long as your message or the what you're trying to say is conveyed to your guests, and you're sincere about that, I think you're pretty much a good communicator. Now, as well as rather than a good communicator as based on speaking or based on expressing oneself, I would like to invite every one of you to become a good communicator or a good listener. So active listener first. Because by actively listening to our client requests or by the things that our client or tourists are trying to say with us, we could also secure their goodwill and also their rapport. So I mean that will build trust and confidence along the way. So when we are, of course, there is uh, when a tour guide is antagonistic about the group or certain members of a group, of course, that creates a very bad impression of you as a tour guide, and also a very bad experience for the whole group that can affect your quality service. So next is commitment. So when you say commitment, when you say you're going to do these things, you do it. So when you say I will show you, or I will please come at this time, you should be able to come in advance, at least 15 minutes before the time that you set. So for example, you say, oh, let's meet at 8:30 at the lobby. So of course, people are waiting for you at 8:30. So that is what to say, commitment. There is a promise that you're going to meet people at 8:30. You should come at least 8 o'clock or 8:20. So and also that is uh, commitment and trust is the foundation where all tours or tour guiding activities relies on. So if we cannot secure this kind of commitment in our part, or commitment that you are, I mean, serious about what you're going to do in your job, I think that is a very substantial question to ask yourself. Uh, I'm do I really belong to this kind of industry? If not, particularly, are you serious about your work? Because if there's no commitment on your part, things will not be easy on you. Okay. Next, of course, care. So, as we all know that these tourists are really stressed, or they are because they are operating, or they are in an environment that is totally or foreign for them, or they are not in their usual setup or usual environment they are comfortable with. So when we receive tourists here in the Philippines, they are of course anxious about the weather because it's too hot here, anxious about the traffic condition because in their place there's no traffic, anxious about the food, and of course anxious about the noise. Or in the Philippines, we notice that most people here are loud talkers, or they speak loud. Generally, you can often heard conversation a mile away if you are in the Philippine street. So that's how noisy our street, because it's our culture. We love to speak. We don't care, or we are expressive of our emotion, whether a nearby person or a standby, or I mean, we don't care as long as we express our emotion. So that might cause a shock for the foreigners, which are quite reserved. So now care should be taken care of in order to, of course, if the food is not palatable for them, we could ask the restaurants serve much more toned down food, or much more westernized food, or much more tailored food for them. So if let's say services such as changing money, we can assist the passenger, because we are in a third world country, and sometimes people, or not all, but sometimes people might exploit this opportunity to earn, you know, an extra dollar. So these are some of our tasks. So of course there is a care, because we are acting as their guardian angel, or some sort of their nanny here in the Philippines, because their interest is of course to have a good stay, and of course in order to for them to have a good stay, we may as much as possible make their lives much more comfortable here. Okay. So next, so what are the requirements to become a tour guide? So now, all of these requirements are should be able to possess them. So if not, we can consider you as amateur tour guide. So amateur ka pa lang. So what separates amateur to professional tour guide? Of course, the license. So if you have the LGU license plus the accreditation of the Department of Tourism, you are a professional tour guide. Now there are certain locality that might accept you as a professional tour guide, as long as you have the LGU license. Uh, yeah, that could be acceptable. But for our standard here, since we have the access and of course the availability of the DOT accreditation is easier. I mean, it's easy to obtain here in Manila or in Metro Manila. So we will adopt professional tour guide as those people who has the license, LGU license, plus the DOT accreditation. Okay. So what are the requirements to become a successful or a professional tour guide? So first is the communication skills. So now it's really important to invest with your communication skills. After all, the businesses are paying you for two things. First, you know how to do things. If you're an engineer, if you are a technician, if you are a doctor, if you are an accountant, if you are an IT, businesses are paying you because of your trade. And what can you do? Now, since we are not in that kind of field, we are more of the people-oriented field, or people labor-intensive field, service-oriented field. Also, some books will define that. So our main point to get hired, or to have a job in this industry, is how good is for you to be able to communicate with your guests. So basically, all of our transaction in this industry emanates from our communication skills. So it is important for us to really make sure that our communication skill, both Filipino and English and other languages, are really appropriate for the situation. So that is our goal as a student, to really improve for our communication skill. So bit by bit we can improve that. So we can check our now. We're not expecting a perfect grammar. Neither me, I could assure that I could have a perfect grammar. So it's as long as uh, your level of communication is acceptable, and you can convey the message appropriately and for the most efficient way. So I think that is a good communication fundamentals for you, or a good communication ground to start with. Next is rapport to the client. So one of the best way to establish rapport or connection or goodwill to your client is to become humorous, or to become a fun. I mean, for me, I really love seeing people smiling. Or of course, you can throw out jokes if you want, or you can have a well approachable demeanor. So that could be a nice way of establishing rapport. Or you can simply ask questions such as, "Oh, how long are you been here in the Philippines? Is that your first time here? Would you like me to share some important words that you can use when you're buying, for you can get discount?" So these are things that you can share that may solicit their interest and of course establish rapport. So we need to open up ourselves to them, so that these people could open up themselves to us. So it's a two-way process, right? So it's a give and take process. So if you're quite reserved, the tendency of your guests is quite, of course, they will be reserved as well. So it's just a waste of valuable opportunity. So as a tour guide, we are some sort of icebreaker. We are a bridge. We connect with people. So that's how what we do in the industry. Next, mastery of knowledge. Now, again, mastery of knowledge is not on itself the most important thing. Okay, you can have the mastery of every knowledge in Intramuros, but if you don't have the communication skill, you don't know how to relate with your guests, you don't know customer service and other of these requirements, of course, you are more of a scholar or academic scholar rather than a tour guide. Okay, so that separates also a good teacher from a yeah, the teacher is smart, but that does not translate to become a good teacher because of, I mean, the problem with the communication skills. Okay, next. But of course, I don't undertone the importance of having a mastery of knowledge, because that itself is really critical. Even though you have all of this characteristic, but if you fail to have knowledge or mastery of the or the expertise in the area, of course that will undermine your confidence, and of course that will destroy your credibility as a tour guide. Next, customer service. So as of course, our guest is our customer, and customer is a king in the service industry. We should be able to please them, or if in case that we're going to decline the guest, we should be able to decline the guests in a very polite and more subtle way of saying no. So there is an art, a particular art of saying no. Of course, it's too it's too I mean, it's too inappropriate to say yes only, but sometimes along the way we have to say no, particularly if that is contrary to the norms, to the law, and of course to the principle of your establishment. So we have to say no. But now, how to say no is, of course, there is a different story for that. So we can say no directly, or we can say no in a very subtle and polite way. So we much prefer to use the subtle and polite way. Of course, to also save face for your guests. Okay, there are some guests that they hate when people say no to them directly. So it's nice to, you know to say it in a very third party way that you can say. Okay. Next, basic first aid skills. So that is essential. So if you have a opportunity to take the Red Cross training program for basic first aid skills, that is a really plus plus for your profession. Because of course, as a tour guide, we are the first respondent in the scene. We cannot rely to someone, a bystander saving our client. We cannot rely to a security guard doing the first aid skills, or first aid for our guests. We must be able to to have the necessary skills, because at the end of the day, uh, which person would care the most for your guests? It is you as a tour guide, right? So of course, a tour guide also brings their first aid kit, no? So it's totally useless if you don't have first aid kit in your bus, or a first aid kit with you. Okay. Next, certification. So for certification, it includes also the licensure accreditation. So we have different, for certification, basically that's in reference to the TESDA, or the NC2 tour guiding skills set by the Technical Education Skills Development Authority, TESDA. Uh, so there are some arrangement, for example, there are some provinces that first they would require the applicants for the LGU license for tour guide to have this test the certificate first, and then after passing the series of exam for the LGU, they will grant the license. And after obtaining the license, the tour guide is could conduct the tour within the vicinity of the locality, but of course to for him or her to be recognized, or to be certified, or to be what we call possess a quality assurance, the tour guide may opted to go for the DOT, or Department of Tourism accreditation program. So it involves a commitment of 2 months training, and of course accreditation by the panel of accreditors, or the panel of jurors, which are they themselves are tour guide, professional tour guides. Next, passion. So yan. So passion. So everything will collapse if you are doing this thing for money, money, money. Of course, it really shows on your demeanor that you're really interested about money, not the people. So of course, in tour guiding, our first interest is about the people. So we take care of people. Of course, it follows to be the money. So when people take care that people feel that we are taking care of them, uh, it so happens to be in tips and other monetary rewards are following us. So that is what we call passion. So we have to take consideration for the passion. If it's not your passion, it's basically a job for you. Okay, that's acceptable as long as you are really, as much as possible, you're really trying your best to really take care of your guests. At the end of the day, it's about taking care of our guests, because they are the one who are these are the person who are paying our salary, our daily living. So it's very important for us to take care of them. Okay, next. So speaking of passion, so to support your passion, your passion could go a long way. But of course, to make it sustainable, the passion should be able to produce financial or monetary or non-financial reward or compensation. So for compensation for tour guides, professional fee. So how much is a professional fee for tour guides? So if you're an amateur tour guide, your professional fee would be ranging for 500 pesos to 1,000 pesos. So for 500 pesos or 1,000 pesos, depends, no? It could be a half day or full day, depending on your qualification. So the less amateur you are, the more higher is your professional fee. So it really um, pays well if you're green certified. There is a license, and of course the experience. So it will increase your professional fee dramatically. Okay. So a good tour guide or a professional tour guide earns around 3,000 pesos per half day tour. So that's how they do it. Okay. So it's above the minimum set standard for the wages and salary for office worker. Now, tourist tips. So again, how much is the tips? In Hong Kong, our daily tip advisory for our guests is around um, $3 for the tour guide. So $3 is equivalent to 150 peso. And if there are 50 guests or 25 guests in a bus, so roughly that is 150 times 20 will have around 3,000 pesos for the tip. So not bad, right? So in Philippines, depending on the market, so there are some market such as the Chinese market. So they really it's because it's not part of their culture to give tip. So we don't you don't expect tip from them, okay, on their individual basis. But if you happens to be involved with more westernized passengers or westernized tourists, you will commonly they're tipping around $1 to $5. And it's a common tip. So you will get $5 or sometimes you will get $20 if that's quite generous or yeah. So $5 times number of passengers. So it's common tip. So it's quite big if you are, especially if you're good. So if you're not so good, actually, tip is also a good indicator of your performance as a tour guide. So the more tip you receive, It means to say that you are a good tour guide, that people are really appreciating you or services. So that's part of a direct correlation of your performance. So of course, as you mature, as you develop the necessary skills of the trade, you will get more professional fee, more tipping, and of course, but commission, because you can engage people to buy or get, okay. So for commission, basically, a tour guide will get a certain percentage of the sales that our souvenir shop are making out with your group. So there are some dedicated shops catering for this kind of arrangement with tour guides. So if you're familiar with MOA, so there is a souvenir shop there, or a duty free shop. So that's intended for luxury items, cosmetic brands, so the tour guide there gets a certain percentage of their sales. So that's how tour guide earns money. Okay. So to sum it all, in terms of monetary, if you are really invested to it, you're actually, if you are really a reputable tour guide, being a tour guide is not really a bad idea. It's a great money generating income potential for you, because you have your own free time. You earn based on your performance. And of course, there are multiple ways of earning money, from your regular compensation, from your tips, and of course from commission or sales of souvenirs. So these are, of course, I personally, I know one tour guide is a millionaire na po siya, or I mean, he earns a lot using this of this model. And of course, what I love with tour guide is, of course, that is majority of the freelance tour guide are not really they are you know, they are not so formal. They are not so formal in a way that they are really paying taxes. So yeah, so that's one siguro one reason why, because the nature of tour guiding is we're not so sure about whether or not there is a client or group, because in tourism there is a lean season and peak season. Of course, paying taxes is a optional for the part of the tour guide. So yeah. So depende po sa kanilang perusal kung if they're going to declare or not. So but majority that I see, medyo hindi. Okay? So sila yung isa sa mga work na they are free to they are tax exempted in their own way. Okay, next. Uh, Compensation. So compensation in terms of non-monetary, okay, we have forms of, as I mentioned a while ago, being a tour guide, you can be a staff guide or a freelance tour guide. So if you're a freelance tour guide, it's some sort of form of self-employment. So para kang nagtatrabaho para sa sarili mo. So basically, you're selling yourself. Your product is your services. So now in this self-employment, you have the freedom to select which one is the best employer for you. So which particular operator is best or has a nice package for you or a nice deal to grab on. So basically, you have this kind of option. So you're not trapped with the rat race or the mice trap or the race that we're, I mean, in the office life. So parang, and also you're getting entertained, because if you don't want to work, okay lang. If you want to work, go. So you can work while it's peak season, and then you can retire or relax if it's lean season. So you can have that kind of arrangement, because everything depends upon you if you're self-employed. Okay. The only drawbacks here, of course, you're not under the safety net of a company. So yun lang siya. Pero other than that, if you're really good in what you're doing, yan. So I think secured ka na, kasi ang kailangan mo lang naman siguro dito is um, you should know how to really invest or take care of your money management, and of course investing would make your future much more secured. Okay. Next is for tour guide, we experience free travel. So let's say the group is going for Barcelona. So if you're lucky to become the tour escort or the tour manager of the group, so you're going to go with the group in Barcelona. So that's how things are. If you're our tour guide, of course, uh, uh, the tour might include an itinerary in Tagaytay, in Baguio, in let's say in Cebu. So you might need to go with a group. So that's free travel. So basically, you are enjoying the same scenery with the tourists. But of course, there are certain ano lang, restrictions. But you cannot really enjoy the destination too much to a certain that you forgot that you are a tour guide. So of course, we have to really work pa rin. Next, tour guiding is also a good place for you to increase your network and connection. Again, there is a saying that your network is your net worth. So, of course, networking and social connections are really important in order to foster and secure your job. Okay, so sometimes, particularly true in the Philippines, right? So if sometimes it's not important what you know, it's more important who you know. Okay, particularly in a setting of you know highly lucrative job. So you need to have networks and connections. So often than not, tour guides are good salesmen because they have good network and connection with people. Okay, so that is a good startup if you want to increase your network and connections. Next, learning opportunity. Being a tour guide is a learning opportunity in disguise. So as if you're learning it hands-on because it's not the common desk work that we have in the office because it's monotonous. In tour guiding, though your task is generally monotonous, you have to meet the tourists at airport, then check in, check out, then departure, etc., etc. It's monotonous, but what makes it so special is that the people. Okay, so you are meeting lots of different types of people from Caucasian, from Asian, from all walks of life, from all walks of careers, and of course industries. So these are basically creates a learning opportunity for you to learn their perspective and of course to share your insight and also your guest insights to you. So basically that's a good way to be entertained and be at the same time learn through their customs and traditions. And of course, you have to share yours. Okay. Now, what are the 10 commandments of tour guiding? Of course, the first one is the most obvious and of course the most uh, I think not only tour guiding but for the whole tourism industry is of course to smile. So syempre, smile po tayo. So of course, smile suggested by psychologists is uh, a behavior that of course lightens the mood of another human being. So it's behaviorally it has a psychological effect that you are presenting to another people. Of course, just take note, there are some culture din po na we smile, but of course, you should practice smiling in the mirror, of course. Kasi parang may mga smile na parang sarcastic, no? So, of course, we try to project smile really in a nice professional way. Okay. Uh, of course, there are some culture then, of course, if you are smiling, but if you are, for example, if you're smiling at a person pero you're not talking to him or you are uh, somewhat far away from the people, of course, that might be mi- um, mis, um, mis, the people might be misled or basically, particularly the Chinese culture. Okay. So sa Chinese culture kasi, there are some elder Chinese people na ayaw nila nakangiti yung tao because they are parang they feel that the person is pinagtatawanan sila or the person is looking down at them. So I don't know why, but of course that's their culture. So which I notice, and of course, my friend told me that there is a culture like that. So of course, for a Chinese person, before you smile, you have to know their name first, and then you can, of course, uh, wear your most beautiful smile. So after knowing them first, so that's the protocol there. Okay. Next is we have to dress properly. So dressing properly conveys conviction. So just imagine your tour guide having a tour while wearing sandal. So of course that creates a lot of cognitive dissonance, or meaning to say it's really confident of what he's trying to say because they are much more concerned about what you wear rather than what you're saying. So that's the issue there. So of course, dress properly does not entails just only having the right suit or neck and tie because sometimes that's not appropriate or overkill. So of course, we have to dress properly in accordance to the situation. So if we're going to have a walking tour, so at least you have a color code. So somewhat much more looking much more dignified, but lighter wears. So if we are going out for a for a much more formal function, such as you're facilitating a ballroom or a gathering for people within the itinerary, let's say masquerade party, of course you have to wear proper dress. Okay, so depending on the situation. Okay, patience. So as a tour guide, you should be able to carry out patience because people are from different walks of life. Sometimes for them, it's really hard to understand the things that you're saying. They are not familiar with that, and of course, in their place, they're not doing these things. In our place, this is how we do it. Of course, there's a lot of things to be that will test your patience. Okay, and also there are some people are really would love to test your patience. And of course, you cannot react too much or you cannot simply get out of the situation. You can simply blame them or shout at them because, again, you are the tour guide. You are the service provider. They are the tourists. They are our customer. Okay. Next. Ready, get set, and go. Okay. So, for that, uh, we have to really prepare for the materials that we have. Of course, though I'm sorry for my misspelling, it's a typo. So in tour guiding, we have to really expect the worst and also prepare for the worst. Of course, by preparing, I mean we're not we're not really trying to become negative thinker, but we're going to become more um, practical and much more proactive. So when you're expecting the worst, let's say there is a weather disturbance, of course you expect the flight cancellation. So now what are the protocols that you should be in place or you should be consider when events escalate in such certain situation? So as you might not be often catch off guard. So ganun lang naman siya. So, for example, yun nga, there is a high risk of potential weather cancellation due to typhoon. So, what are your precautionary measure? Perhaps during this time, you might consider calling the insurance company if the passenger could claim for a coverage for the weather disturbance. Or perhaps they might shoulder some extension of the tour. For example, they could be allowed to check in for 2 more nights or 1 more night at the accommodation. So these are some things that you're going to become ready. And of course, nothing really beats a well-prepared man. Okay, next. Being friendly. Okay, so that's natural. Being friendly is a part of the game, so part of the situation. Okay, calm and positive. Oh, now, yeah. So this one is really a testing ground for a good tour guide because there's some certain situation that will really test your positivity or your, I mean, Handling a group, especially a big group, is really stressful. So what makes it more extra stressful is that when you're tour guides or when you are in a group that they really see you at being stressed out. So it really it has this cripple effect. For example, a flight cancellation. Of course, that creates a lot of stress for the anxiety for the passenger. If you are really, let's say, if that also creates anxiety on your part, you don't know what to do. Of course, you're only feeding one anxiety to another. So of course, it's better to remain calm and be positive. If you cannot do that, let's say you're a warrior by nature, I think it's about time to check yourself whether you are in the right industry to belong with. Because in tourism industry, being positive and calm is really essential because at the end of the day there is no cycle or there's no moment in this industry that you're not going to encounter stressful passenger, demanding passenger, smooth sailing tours. So we have it all. So basically it's unavoidable because there is a human error plus human conditions and also some certain non-human conditions such as weather, um, other force majeures. So that's part of the game. Okay, next, be flexible. So when you say be flexible, you're not going to stick with your itinerary lang. Let's say the itinerary proves to be impractical. The itinerary proves to be no, you cannot serve the itinerary on the I mean as per sequence in your tour voucher or in the itinerary because of the traffic condition, you might be flexible enough to allow certain deviation. So for example, hindi nyo mabibisita siya ngayon, tanghaling tapat, pwede naman siyang puntahan on the afternoon. So that will be I think, a necessary adjustment for your guests to enjoy a much more nicer, much more hassle-free travel rather than to allow yourself to be stuck in the traffic for the purpose or the mere purpose of getting to the destination or to the spot because that is part of the sequence of the itinerary. So I think as a tour guide, you have this kind of judgment call for you, whether or not if you are, I mean, you are the manager of the tour after all. So you can take decision for the benefit of the group. Okay. Next, study your guests. It is very important for us to really build rapport. And of course, the first thing that we're doing to have or to build rapport is to know them, the group. So first, when I do tour guiding, example, I ask the people, so where you're from. So of course, the people are much more interested to say their place of origin. For example, they are from Philippines, Vietnam, or somewhere else. Next, and of course, you would identify if it's a group that is composed of a homogeneous, or let's say it's if a particular one group lang siya, if it's a corporate incentive or a big family, or it's a group that is composed of subgroups. Okay. So for that, that's much more challenging. Okay, if it's a one group, let's say it's a corporate account, you might identify key possible allies that you may rely on later on. For example, you might identify the manager. So he's the big boss or the one that you have to take care or have a approximate good relation because after all, these guys will follow the boss because he has the formal power in the office. Of course, that extends to the informal setup during the tour. So decision making process might you might consult the boss for the decision making process. Okay, but of course you have to really delineate which decision are really a concern of the manager because there's some decision that you can decide on your own as a tour guide and without further bothering your manager or the manager of the group. Okay, next, protect your partners. Of course, people in the tour will ask you, how much do you charge for this? Uh, can we book directly to you? Or do you have an idea how much is this cost or the tour cost really? So basically, these are some probing questions that might undermine your travel partners, such as your tour operator, the travel agent that arranged the booking, and also some of your suppliers. So, I mean, if we undermine these partners, so do you expect next time do you have a group from them? Of course not, right? So it's a good thing to protect your partners because after all, what's the best way to handle such query is for that, ma'am, you ask your travel agent. I think she or he has the best rate for you. So that's it. So you don't have to divulge the information because, I mean, they have their own business. So they might, the travel agent might charge a little premium compared with your fare, with your actual cost. So to not to compromise things or not to further create chaos, of course that will be a good way to handle that. Okay, so protect your travel partner. That is essential because after all, the one who makes or the one who will give you a booking is your travel partner, not the tourist, because the tourist will basically I mean, after the booking, chances are we cannot see the tourist anymore. So that's the dilemma here. Okay. Next is be understanding but firm. So, you know, in this particular discipline, we have to say no if it's no. But again, we have to have the conviction and a good rationale on declining a passenger request. And of course, we have to let the passenger, I mean, we should feel the empathy or I mean the passenger is requesting these things because she or he needs it, but sad to say there are some circumstances that are beyond our control that we cannot grant his or her requests. So these are should be we should be firm yet polite in explaining these things. Okay, now to end our discussion. Okay, so personally, what is the best selling point or becoming a tour guide to you? So what are the selling point or what are the points that you consider uh, to become a tour guide? So bakit ba? Bakit ba kayo attracted to become a tour guide? Okay. So okay, that's all. So if you are happy with the discussion, you may comment, subscribe, and share this. Thank you.